Hello, and welcome to our fifth annual Legislative Aid Advocacy Kickoff, designed specifically for legislative staffers and aides. We're so glad that you're joining us for this. I am Gretchen Knowlton, Manager of Advocacy, and I'm going to introduce a couple of AgeGuide colleagues. With me to present from the advocacy team, we have Delaney Patrick, Advocacy Coordinator, who many of you will recognize from her emails to you. She's often in touch. We are also privileged to have Leslie Edstrom, Director of Planning, Grants, and Program Development, joining us. We first designed this kickoff meeting 5 years ago as a tool to help you as you start a new legislative session, to help you find access to resources and get an update on aging services in your districts. Our theme for this year is caregivers, and that's because, as we'll discuss more later, a lot of people in our region and across the country really are caregivers, and they face some unique challenges. So we wanted to share with you the resources and tools that we have available at AgeGuide through our funded partners to help this specific caregiver population as we work to make sure that everyone has support to help them to age well. Here's our agenda for this webinar. The Aging Advocacy Spotlight is on caregivers, and we're going to start out talking about the Older Americans Act. We're going to give you a little information about AgeGuide, talk some specifics about caregivers, and then go into the home and community-based core services that are available through the Older Americans Act, and share other state and federal resources that we think you'll be interested in. And then we're going to specifically talk about advocacy opportunities and partnership opportunities for you. So to kick us off, I want to start the conversation about caregivers. The first thing to figure out is who is a caregiver. And in this context, we're talking about people who provide care to an older adult or who are older adults providing care to someone else. These are unpaid family or loved ones, maybe spouses, adult children, friends, neighbors, anyone caring for an older adult, and grandparents raising grandchildren. So it could also be an older adult who's caring for someone over 18 with disabilities. All these caregiver roles are equally important, and they may also be equally stressful. If the stress of caregiving isn't addressed, we know that it can lead to serious health problems such as depression, anxiety, and serious chronic diseases. It can also lead to burnout, which in the end ends up limiting the care that a person is able to provide to their loved one. So while it's natural to want to focus on the health of the loved one who needs the extra assistance, it's just as important for caregivers to focus on themselves. So we're trying to help them do that. One of the challenges, however, is that many caregivers we find don't recognize that they are caregiving. It's hard to seek help if you don't know that you're a caregiver, and some of you may actually be caregivers and don't even realize it. Here's some questions that I'd like you to take a moment to consider. So take a moment to just think about each of these questions for yourself. Do you ever pick up groceries for an older adult in your life? Maybe run errands, things like that. Do you ever take an older adult to doctor appointments or other outings, providing transportation, taking people somewhere? Do you ever receive more than 3 holiday cards from doctor's offices? That means that you go to a lot of doctor appointments, possibly for someone else. Do you help an older adult with their technology, helping them get on the internet, helping them with their email, connecting them to online resources for healthcare, Medicare, things like that? Do you know someone else's social security number just as well or better than your own? That means that you're filling out a lot of forms for someone else. You're helping them with Medicare enrollment. You're helping them at the doctor's office. These are just some things to think about. So again, we don't always see the activities that we do for an older adult loved one as caregiving. We think of ourselves as a spouse or a daughter or a niece. And this is especially true for younger generations. But the fact is that the average caregiver is actually 49 years old. So you can see that there's a lot of younger caregivers just as much as there's older adult caregivers. And so it's not always the first thing that you think about when you think of caregiving, but anyone can be a caregiver. So, as legislative staffers, when you're getting calls, this is something that I would encourage you to keep in mind. If people mention that they live in a multi-generational household or they mention something about caring for a loved one, you might want to ask if they're a caregiver and provide some of the resources that we're going to be talking to you about today. And now I'm going to turn it over to Leslie to talk about some of the core services that we provide at AgeGuide. Leslie?
Thank you, Gretchen. Family Caregiver Support Services are one of the Older Americans Act core services. But before we go deeper into caregiver services, I would like to provide a brief overview of the Older Americans Act, as it is the foundation of the work that we do here at AgeGuide. The Act, which was passed in 1965, created the National Aging Network, which is a service delivery system designed to meet the needs of older adults. The intent of the Older Americans Act is to provide funding for services and supports that enable older adults to remain independent and engaged in their communities. It also provides funding to support caregivers. Most Older Americans Act programs are available to anyone age 60 and over, regardless of income or assets. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, 1 in 5 people that are older than 60 years of age are in some way connected to the Older Americans Act services. The Older American Act funds a broad range of vital assistance that keeps older adults healthy and independent. And we're going to delve into these programs that are available shortly. But before that, I want to talk a bit about greatest economic and social need. Equity has been embedded in the Older Americans Act since its inception in 1965. The services in the Older Americans Act prioritize specific populations, including the older demographic of 75 years in age and older, limited English-speaking persons, the LGBTQ plus community and older adults, people living alone or in rural areas, and those with low incomes. While these principles make the Act, have guided our work and make the Act accessible to everyone, we have made it a priority at AgeGuide to make our programs also accessible for everyone. AgeGuide partners with a variety of organizations that specialize in reaching these target populations. We recognize that sometimes older adults, especially the ones that we've mentioned here on the screen, are at risk of social isolation due to cultural, economic, and language barriers. AgeGuide targets outreach to these populations through community partners who specialize in outreaching to these groups. For example, we partner with the Coalition of Limited English-Speaking Elders, otherwise known as CLEAS. These folks reach out to our local community groups and connect with people in multiple languages and help them access services in our communities. AgeGuide also partners with SAGE to provide ongoing training and credentials to our staff on the unique needs of the LGBTQ plus community and older adults, who we know are a large and growing population which has a unique need due to a lifetime of discrimination and harassment. Other populations that we are focusing on include those who live in isolated, rural locations and those with disabilities, including those with dementia and Alzheimer's disease. We'll be talking about some of the programs that target these populations later in the presentation. We've also been providing trainings to the Aging Network on culturally sensitive services, building diverse community partnerships, and hiring diverse staff that look like the people that they serve. I hope that this puts some context around AgeGuide's strategic focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and our efforts to target those older adults with greatest economic and social need. Next, I want to take just a few minutes to explain AgeGuide's role as an area agency on aging, so you can get a feel for the broader context of how we serve you and your constituents. AgeGuide is one of 622 area agencies on aging throughout the United States and one of 13 in Illinois. Our service area includes DuPage, Grundy, Kane, Kendall, Kankakee, Lake, McHenry, and Will counties. We work closely with the Federal Administration on Community Living, the Illinois Department on Aging, as well as many community agencies and local providers to offer older American Act services like the ones we're going to be talking about this morning. One of our primary functions is to award funding to local agencies in each county. AgeGuide then monitors these services to ensure they are of high quality and that funds are spent appropriately. So if you want to contact AgeGuide or look on our website for specific Older Americans Act services, we would refer you to the funded partner in your county who provides the service that you are looking for. AgeGuide's role is to coordinate and oversee services, connect people to local service providers, and to advocate to affect policy change that supports aging at home and in the community with maximum health, independence, and well-being. This next slide shows the demographics of our planning and service area. And we also have this demographic information available for each county in our region, which can be available for your use. You can find these demographics on our website under the tab Advocacy. Older adults in our 8-county region in northeastern Illinois make up 25% of the state's 60-plus population. And the population that's growing the fastest is that group that's 85 years of age and older. You can see that 21% of older adults in our region are living alone, which is a risk factor that involves needing more support. And 6% of our population live at or below the poverty line. What it means to be old is changing as we live longer. The percentage of the aging population that grows and continues to live longer are going to require multiple health services. It's been said that on average, people that are 75 years of age and older require at least 4 or more services to keep them independent and living in their home. So as our population ages, the needs of your district will change as well. Sometimes we hear statistics of growth in the aging population presented in a negative light. Actually, an aging population is good for the economy in your district. Older adults volunteer, and with that volunteerism, they bring a wealth of life and work experience, and they contribute to the economy. We as a state need to advocate for older adults and caregivers to ensure that those with greatest economic and social need have federal, state, local, and private resources available for home and community-based services that are preferred by older adults and are more affordable than institutional care. Like we've mentioned, a clear majority of people would rather and prefer to stay in their current home and community for as long as possible. The Aging Network understands that for most of us, there is no place like home. And that is why community-based services are so essential. Our Older Americans Act funded services like home-delivered meals, caregiver support, transportation, and health promotion programs not only maximize people's health, independence, and well-being, but they also prevent unnecessary health care costs and delay the need for institutional care. Area agencies have created a robust home and community-based system that is accessible, consumer-focused, and supportive, regardless of one's income or assets, and they can be found in every community. As I previously mentioned, our work with older adults and caregivers stems from the Older Americans Act. These services empower older adults to remain independent, connected, and to age well. Chances are, when you get a call from an older adult constituent or someone who is concerned about an older neighbor, friend, or family member, the services offered on this slide, one or more of these areas will probably and most likely provide the resources that they are looking for. Before I briefly walk you through the home and community-based services on this screen, I want to start by explaining that AgeGuide funds Aging and Disability Resource Networks, otherwise known as ADRNs, which are one-stop shops for services and supports for older adults and caregivers in each of our counties. Further along in this PowerPoint, I will show you how you can access these resources through the AgeGuide website. Next, we're going to walk you through each of these services, and I would like to start by inviting Delaney to talk about caregiver services available in our area and to address caregivers' unique needs and the needs of loved ones that they care for.
Thank you,
Delaney?
Leslie. Here on the screen are some national statistics on family caregivers. Currently, there are 53 million caregivers out there. As you can see, some of the challenges for caregivers are feeling isolated and alone, the financial strain and having to work outside the home as well. 61% are employed. 27% of caregivers are also in the sandwich generation, meaning they're caring for an older adult and young children. All of this leads to high stress, which can lead to burnout eventually. These statistics indicate that the need for better family caregiver support is a key issue of our time. To address this, we at AgeGuide, along with other area agencies on aging, are working to create a comprehensive system of support for family caregivers. Here in Illinois, there has been much focus on the needs of informal family caregivers, and rightfully so. Fortunately, through the advocacy work of AgeGuide and other area agencies on aging, our federal and state government now recognizes this need and has increased resources to enhance our caregiver resource centers and supportive programs. Thanks to new funding, we have trained staff in each county who can create a personal roadmap for these caregivers through our tailored care assessment tool. This roadmap might identify a need for a home-delivered meal or adult day services for a care recipient. Maybe they need financial support or adaptive equipment or home modification. Maybe they need training, counseling, or the opportunity to attend a memory cafe or support group to be with people who are also dealing with the same challenges. Maybe they just want to know about housing options or a senior center that their mom can go to for recreation. Really, whatever it is they're looking for, our aging network has the expertise to share unbiased information and guide them to a community resource that best meets their needs. I said that the additional state and federal funds have allowed us to create a tailored assessment tool. This tool is available to anyone and including you. This is a screenshot of the webpage on our website where you'll find this. It is a self-assessment questionnaire. Every family caregiver support service provider offers the caregiver self-assessment questionnaire. AgeGuide has a questionnaire on our website as well. This is a screening tool that helps caregivers determine their needs and if they should consider taking a full caregiver assessment, which is a tool that helps caregivers identify their unique needs and offers local resources that caregivers can use to reduce their stress and burden. You can even walk people through this screening tool on our website if they need help. They will be eventually linked to a caregiver resource center in their county to connect them to resources. Next, we're going to look at our outcome data from our tailored care support services. To address the needs of family caregivers, AgeGuide has partnered with Tailored Care, which is also known as TCare, to strengthen the capacity of its providers to support family caregivers. TCare is a caregiver assessment tool that identifies the stressors of individual caregivers and provides personalized tools and resources to support the caregiving journey. So far this year, starting from January 2023 to now, to help tell us the story of caregivers in our region, AgeGuide has seen 2,703 assessments, 1,898 cases created, 496 follow-ups, and 1,060 care plans for the caregiver. For demographics, we pulled statistics on caregiver by race, caregiver by gender, and caregiver employment by race, and we pulled the statistics specifically for those working full-time. Lastly, outcomes from the TCare program help explain how beneficial it is for so many caregivers. Through the TCare program, we have seen decreases in stress burden and depression. As a result of the care plan, the caregiver stress has been reduced and the positive feelings, or uplifts, have increased, leading to an improved relationship and overall positive state of mind. I will now pass it back to Gretchen to talk about the family caregiver support services that are available to meet the needs identified with this assessment tool.
We will review all of the caregiver services briefly, but more thorough information can be found on our website. Family support services include the things that you see here on the screen, Caregiver assistance is the entry point for caregivers. So the assessment tool that Delaney just talked about to assess needs and connect caregivers to resources. Respite Services is a financial assistance fund to support caregivers in arranging for short-term respite services to give them a break. Similar to respite is supportive gap filling, which is also a financial assistance fund that can be utilized to provide assistance with a wide range of short-term needs like specialized meals, maybe transportation or home modifications and assistive devices, things to improve the quality of life for both the care recipient and the caregiver. We also have funds specifically for those providing care to people with dementia, Alzheimer's disease, related dementias of any age, and their caregivers. This slide has some more of our services and supports that are available. The Caregiver Counseling Center supports a caregiver's mental health through counseling, support groups, and training and education sessions. Support groups is basically peer group support, meeting with other caregivers who have similar concerns and issues. That can be very powerful for caregivers. Training and education that we have available supports the caregiver's mental health and informs them about resources that we're talking about. I would also like to note that grandparents and other relatives who are 55 and older and are the primary caregiver for a child who's 18 years old and younger can also qualify for these caregiver support services. This is a growing number of caregivers that we're seeing who are providing care when birth parents are unable to, and they step in and provide care to a family member, even an unrelated child sometimes. But we call them grandparents raising grandchildren or kinship care. Finally, I just want to say that these programs are proven to be effective. Data from the Administration on Community Living's most recent national survey of caregivers of older adult clients shows that these Older Americans Act services, including those provided through the National Family Caregiver Support Program, are effective in helping caregivers keep their loved ones at home. In fact, 74% of caregivers who get these services reported that it helped them provide care longer than they otherwise would have been able to. And 88% of caregivers reported that the service helped them to be a better caregiver. So really good outcome data proving the success of these supports. Before we move on, here's a little pop quiz for you, just for a little fun. We're wondering if you can guess what all of these famous people have in common. And it's not that they're caregivers, it's something else. So I'll let you think about that for a second. The answer is that they were all raised by grandparents. So being raised by a grandparent can have really positive benefits. It can create really ambitious and successful adults. It provides that intergenerational connection, keeps them with family and friends who they love rather than them having to go into a system like the foster care system. So that's just a little side note for you. Next, I'm going to pass it on to Leslie to go into more detail on our home and community-based services for older adults.
Thank you, Gretchen. Home and community-based services are designed to help older adults make informed decisions before a crisis occurs. They also help to reduce social isolation and promote community engagement. And they also foster health and social well-being for older adults. So on the screen, you see a list of services here. I'm going to just briefly go through them all. A few slides ago, I mentioned Aging and Disability Resource Networks, and information and assistance are provided through these networks, which are also located in care coordination units. Care coordination units are determined by Illinois Department on Aging. And again, these are located in every single one of our counties, and it's also where our Aging and Disability Resource Networks are embedded. So if you call a care coordination unit, you also have information and assistance there. And they are the gateway to all of the services that we've talked about today. So if you're unsure of if that care coordination unit provides that service, that's okay. They will direct you to where you need to go to help your constituent. So that being said about information and assistance, I'll move next to assistance with Medicare or Medicaid benefits. And I would like to say this is a free statewide health insurance counseling service for Medicare beneficiaries and their caregivers. Information and assistance and resources are provided on applying for Medicare, choosing Medicare supplemental insurance and advantage plans, and so much more. Then we'll talk about education and recreation. We find these programs available in most all of our, if not all of our senior centers throughout our region. Also, they are included in care coordination units. Some of our care coordination units in our region also have senior centers attached, but they're great places to foster community. People that go to experience education and recreation programs look at wherever these are housed or located as a home away from home. And it really does improve social connections and reduce social isolation. And many times, evidence-based healthy aging classes are taking place at these centers. Evidence-based healthy aging classes are those that are designed to see an improvement from the moment a person starts a class to when the class is finished. They're designed to show change and to improve situations with chronic disease, arthritis, and even reducing stress for caregivers. So they're great classes, and they help older adults in a variety of ways. Friendly visits and phone calls are really designed for those persons that are homebound and helping to connect them with a volunteer who may also be homebound or not. In the case of a friendly visit, that it requires or involves someone who's a volunteer coming into the home and visiting with somebody who cannot get out into the community. And they develop a friendship, and they meet on a regular basis. And it really, we find that it benefits both the volunteer and the person who is at home. And for telephone reassurance, it's the same type of a relationship building experience, except the person who's the volunteer is making a call, a regular phone call to the person on the other end who's homebound. And again, developing that relationship and the connection with someone else. And finally, transportation, which is, I'm sure, a service that you hear about from your constituents who are older adults. And it is one that we say often at AgeGuide, we could put all of the funding we receive from the federal government, the state, and from local resources and never be able to fix the transportation issues that are out there for older adults. But that doesn't mean we're going to stop trying. In each of our counties, we have transportation services available, and we're always seeking in our role as an area agency to develop new program tweaks, if you will, so that we can provide these services to more people, and we'll continue to do so and keep updating you on any changes that take place or innovations that are available. These set of services are really part of the Aging and Disability Rights Network services. So legal services are those that help to provide assistance in resolving civil legal matters, protecting legal rights, and they also provide legal advice. And again, these services are at no charge to the participant, and they're really beneficial, and again, in every county. Adult protective services are those services that help an older adult, 60 years of age and older, or a person in the community ages 18 to 59 who is disabled and living in a community setting. What happens here is that a report of alleged abuse is made by somebody in the community, or it could be a family member or a friend who suspects that a person is either being financially exploited, emotionally, physically, or financially abused in any way. And this also encompasses self-neglect situations as well. So this program is interesting because the person who is the alleged victim still has self-determination as to what will happen in the situation of alleged abuse, meaning that an elder abuse investigator would go out to the home and meet with this person. And the person who's the alleged victim may say, I don't want any assistance, or may choose to provide certain types of resources or to use certain types of resources. But the person who makes the report remains anonymous, and to that end also does not get a call back to let them know what decisions are made by the victim. That is also confidential. So they don't ever tell the alleged victim who made the call, but they also don't report back to the person who was concerned to let them know what happened, which is challenging for folks because they want to see change and improvement, and it doesn't always happen in the way and the time frame that people think it should, or in the way that people think things could be resolved. Finally, I want to touch briefly on ombudsman services or long-term care services. This is another program protecting rights of individuals that live in a long-term care setting. And again, this is about residents' rights. So if somebody from the community calls and makes a complaint on a long-term care facility on behalf of someone who lives in the home, the ombudsman would go out to the home and meet with the individual who's experiencing maybe a loss of rights and speak to them about their situation. Again, there is self-determination involved here. If the resident in the community does not see that their rights are being violated, they may say that they have no complaint to make. Again, they may choose to take a path to resolve the issue in a way that the person who's making the complaint may not understand. Or maybe they don't feel like it's an issue at all. Sometimes people will make a complaint about a relationship that's formed between two persons that reside in a nursing home, say maybe a love connection, and it makes them uncomfortable. But in the case of the resident, they're happy with this relationship and they don't have any problem with it. And so that's an example of a situation where the reporter might not be comfortable, but the resident who has their own rights at hand makes the choice to continue with the relationship. So hopefully that helps explain how that program works. I'm sure many of you know about nutrition services in the form of, everyone's heard of Meals on Wheels. But nutrition services encompass two services: community dining and home delivered meals. Community dining offers social engagement and nutrition in a community setting where older adults can enjoy a healthy meal, socialize with others, and have access to supportive services. In fiscal year 2023, 6,572 people participated in community dining in our region, up 75% from last year. There were also 106,000 meals served, which is also up 20% from the previous year. We recently expanded our community dining sites to include restaurant options thanks to a 3-year grant from the Administration for Community Living. There are currently 6 restaurant community dining programs offered in our region. There's Lori's Diner in Kankakee, Dakota's in Kendall County, Maria's, White's, and Planet Pizza in Grundy County, and Urban Kitchen in Crest Hill, which is in Will County. We have a new restaurant planning to open in Lake County called Honey Bella, and that will open, our plans are for it to open in January. Our goal is to expand restaurant sites in all 8 of our counties for the remaining 2 years of the grant. There are several benefits to older adults by participating in the restaurant programs, including menu choice, time flexibility, while also combating social isolation. Participants in restaurant programs have a variety of meals to choose from, which are approved by a licensed registered dietitian and meet 1/3 of the daily nutrition requirements. These programs offer older adults the opportunity to dine at any time during the restaurant's hours of operation and the chance to socialize during a meeting or a meal in a community setting. We also have worked hard to expand culturally appropriate traditional community dining opportunities through our planning and service area. Southeast Asian cuisine is offered in DuPage County and Will counties. Chinese cuisine is now offered in DuPage and Kane counties. Korean cuisine is offered in Lake County, and Hispanic cuisine is offered in Kankakee County. Now let's talk about home delivered meals. In FY23, 1,124,556 home delivered meals were provided in our region. That's up 9% from FY22. The number of people receiving home delivered meals also grew by 4% in 2023 to 8,440 people. An innovation in home delivered meals that sprung up from COVID are grab and go meals for people that are not comfortable eating in a community dining setting or are unable to do so during traditional meal times. Some of you may receive calls from older adults frequently, and there's a chance that they are just looking to make a connection. Social isolation was recognized as a health crisis, and reducing social isolation for older adults has been a statewide initiative even before the pandemic began. Reducing isolation continues to be a priority in the Illinois Department on Aging state plan and also for the state legislature, as evidenced by a budget including funding to help address this issue. So now I'm going to just review briefly a couple of the social connection innovations that are available throughout our region. First, tech and education. AgeGuide has tablets they've offered to individuals throughout our region. The older adults that take these tablets have to commit to at least 3 education sessions to learn how to use their new device. And they're also provided with additional resources after the classes so that they can continue on their journey of learning more on how to use this technology. Targeted outreach to culturally diverse older adults are, as we talked about briefly before, with the Coalition of Limited English Speaking Elders, going out into the community and looking at different community centers that help people with limited or that are connected to limited English speaking folks who feel comfortable at these centers. And so police goes there and presents information on services available in the region and helps them access services that they need. So first they share the presentation, give them some awareness of what's available, and then they walk them through the process of getting these services. On-the-go transportation is a new innovative type of transportation program. On-the-go transportation is like a mix of a Lyft and Uber transportation system with the additional protection piece that older adults and their loved ones are concerned with. So somebody who needs transportation will not only get a ride, like an Uber ride, they'll also get some recognition that the ride has taken place and information that the person has arrived safely at their destination and again, safely returned home. So it's peace of mind for the older adult and their loved one to make sure that the person has gotten where they need to go. There's also hybrid programming that is available through the Good Memories Choir, which is an opportunity for older adults who are homebound to get online and have a choir experience with other folks who are like-minded and enjoy the opportunity to sing together. Then there's also sing-along memory cafes that also provide a singing experience, but this is a little bit different in that the people on this experience have dementias or Alzheimer's disease, and they join this singing experience with their care partner and others again throughout the region because it is a hybrid. And so people are able to just go online and experience this virtually. And it's amazing to see how someone who has Alzheimer's and may start the program with a flat effect. Once the music starts, you can see them open up and become alive and enjoy the music and respond to the care partner and have this experience together that they wouldn't otherwise have in their normal daily life. So it's a great program. And again, I want to mention all these programs are offered region-wide. And if you're interested in how somebody, a constituent that you have could connect, please give AgeGuide a call or email one of us and we'll connect you to these programs. Next, I'd like to turn it over to Gretchen to talk about other supportive services that AgeGuide has to offer. Gretchen?
AgeGuide has a learning center, which is an educational resource for aging service providers, the business community, first responders, healthcare professional, faith communities, older adults and caregivers, anybody from the community who's interested in learning more about our services and resources. The AgeGuide Learning Center offers online courses and webinars to educate on practical tools, resources, and information that guides people on their aging journey. The current resources that we have available to the public include dementia-friendly business sector training and Medicare how-to videos, which are available in multiple languages. We also have a video resource library with many different trainings that are recorded webinars on topics of interest to older adults and those supporting them. Some of you on this call may be particularly interested in our dementia-friendly trainings. These trainings only take a few minutes and help create communities and organizations that are inclusive and friendly to those with dementia. They provide basic information and explore dementia-friendly communication strategies, things like how to simplify the environment, make some modifications, and other best practices and helpful tips for working with people who have some dementia. Another great resource that I think you'll find useful is our Medicare assistance trainings. These walk people through all the details of Medicare enrollment. So if you get calls and people looking for some help doing their Medicare enrollment, these videos are available. They're super helpful, and we have them available, as I said, in a number of different languages. We will put the link in the notes to this video, and they're also available from our website. You can find them on the AgeGuide website under the Learning Center.
Next, I'd like to share with you an important program offered by the Illinois Department on Aging, the Community Care Program. This program assists older adults to maintain their independence and provides cost-effective alternatives to nursing home placement. Services include comprehensive care coordination, adult day services, in-home services, emergency home response services, and automated medication dispenser services. Constituents who are eligible include those individuals who are 60 years of age and older, either a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen within a specific category, residents of Illinois, those that have non-exempt assets of $17,500 or less, and have an assessed need for long-term care or to be at risk for nursing home placement as measured by a determination of need assessment. Next slide. Another program that is not included in the Older Americans Act core services, but is an important part of the work that we do at AgeGuide, is the Veterans Independence Program or Veterans Directed Care Program. This is a veterans-directed home and community-based service that serves eligible veterans of any age who are at risk for long-term care placement and their family caregivers. Veterans-directed care allows veterans to receive home and community-based services that enable them to avoid institutionalization and continue to live in their homes and communities for as long as possible. This program is available to veterans who are currently receiving primary care through the Captain A. James Lovell Federal Health Care Center. We currently serve veterans in Lake County, DuPage, Cook, and McHenry counties through this program. Next, I'd like to invite Delaney to show us how to use the website as a resource. Delaney?
We know that we have provided a lot of information, and now you might be wondering how to find these resources. We have a short video here to walk you through how to find resources on our website. So if you get calls from constituents asking about resources, Google AgeGuide and go straight to Services and Supports on the tab above. From here, you can find a whole list of services, but as Leslie mentioned, the best place to go is Information and Assistance. From here, find your county, and you can click on the resources available in each of your counties. We are currently hard at work on the Community Needs Assessment. This is our 3-year cycle for gathering input into our services and the needs of our service area so that we can plan for the next 3 years. Currently, there are 2 surveys available out. One is for stakeholders, and this includes community members, service providers, and policymakers. The second one is for community members, and so this is for older adults, caregivers, and target populations, or anyone who qualifies for Older American Act services. With the help of our funded partner, Coalition for Limited English-Speaking Elders, we have community surveys available in multiple languages. One of the goals of AgeGuide's DEIA Steering Committee is to impart knowledge and experience of diverse communities and to inspire change to make services more accessible to all. Thanks to CLEAS, we are able to hear from diverse older adults in our community to ensure they also have a voice through the community survey. We invite all of you to take the stakeholder survey. You can find it on our website, and we'll also put it in the resource section. So far, we have hosted 16 sessions, and we have one more planned for next week. We have hosted 2 to 3 sessions in each of the larger counties, one in smaller counties, and then we have also hosted some with community organizations serving our target audience, those with the greatest social and economic needs. So we met at churches, restaurants, and other community sites to reach some limited English-speaking older adults and people from particular racial and ethnic groups. We are currently working with the Center of Governmental Studies at Northern Illinois to do data analysis. After all the data is compiled, we'll have a findings report and a virtual presentation. We hope you will all join us for a virtual findings presentation on March 6th from 10 to 11 a.m. to hear what we learned from the community about older adult services. We'll be sending an invitation with the registration link to you all soon.
Now I want to share what AgeGuide is advocating for this next legislative session. Caregiving for older adults, as we've been talking about, presents some unique challenges. And we started out this meeting talking about how the Older Americans Act is designed to be there to help support the rights of older Americans and their caregivers. Unfortunately, for over a decade now, annual investments in federal aging services not only failed to keep pace with the growth in the number and diversity of older Americans, but also suffered from indiscriminate cuts. Those reductions disproportionately affected the most vulnerable older adults and struggling communities. The aging network is also struggling with the staffing shortages and instability that's affecting all social service agencies across the state and country. Our funded partners and caregivers have been especially hard hit. So our legislative priorities for the next year are to continue supporting home and community-based services that are essential to helping people stay at home and in the community, and strengthen family caregiver support. We've been able to do a lot with the small increases that we did receive for caregiver supports, but there is much more to do. Remember, the aging population is growing. People want to stay in the community. Community-based services are effective and less costly than nursing home placement. And yet the investment in the Older Americans Act has been decreasing with inflation and population growth for decades. So we believe that now is the time to invest in America's aging population. These priorities will help us continue to support older adults and their caregivers with long-term services and supports. I want to give you some dates to add to your calendars. Delaney just spoke about our community needs assessment. And as she said, we're currently wrapping up our surveys and listening sessions. And by March, we'll have a full report and an update on what we found out about the needs and challenges and opportunities in this region. So we hope that you will all join us again for a virtual findings presentation, which we're going to have, as Delaney said, on March 6th from 10 to 11 a.m. So mark your calendars, and we will share what we learned from the community about older adult services and what we're going to be changing and how we're going to be addressing the needs. So we'll be sending an invitation with a registration link to all of you, so keep an eye out for that. We also have our annual meeting in April, which some of you have attended in the past, and we welcome you to join us. It's a great opportunity to learn more about our services and our goals for the next year. Also, for those of you who are returning staffers, you will remember that AgeGuide hosts an annual advocacy breakfast collaborative in partnership with AARP. And these events have been wonderful and well attended by elected officials, you elected official staffers and aides, and the AgeGuide network providers and constituents. This year, our advocacy breakfast will be in May in celebration of Older Americans Month. We don't have dates yet, but keep a lookout for our invitation coming in the spring. We'll be celebrating Older Americans Month by giving our legislators a chance to get out into the community to meet with older adults and share any legislation relevant to older constituents. We have lots of tools and resources to help you keep up with the latest on what we're doing and what's important to older adults and their caregivers. I want to encourage you to engage with us on social media as soon as we end the webinar. If you're not already, please follow AgeGuide on Facebook and Twitter. There you're going to find that we post lots of useful articles, resources, and notices about events that are going on in the area. And there's always lots of updates on our social media. Then there's also our monthly newsletter called the Aging Report, which you can sign up for by going to our website under News and Events. And you can get these sent to your inbox. That's where you'll find out about our latest blog posts and all the events we mentioned in this presentation. We also have a podcast that is in its third season. It features firsthand stories from long-term care residents, from caregivers, and older adults themselves. Check it out wherever you like to get your podcasts, and it's also on our website. These things are great ways for all of us to collaborate and to advocate for older adults and stay in touch. So we hope you found this information helpful. And we will be sending out the PowerPoint, which will be available in your email, and all of the resources that we talked about are on our website. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.